The movie opens on Christmas Eve, where we see a little boy named Billy who is currently with his parents at a hospice. Billy then becomes creeped out when he notices an old janitor standing behind a door and staring at him, but the man soon disappears. Moments later, Billy's father arrives looking nervous, and when his mother asks him if he did it, he says yes. Next, Billy goes to see his grandpa, and the two are happy to see each other after a long time. They begin chatting, but things take a dark turn when the grandpa suddenly starts coughing violently, prompting Billy to rush off to get some water. But the old man's health rapidly worsens. Sometime later, we see Billy returning home with his parents, who are visibly panicked as they discuss grandpa. The father explains that the medicine may have reacted badly with other pills, but he assures his wife that the old man signed everything. Billy asks if Grandpa is going to be okay, but his dad bluntly says that he is dead, which deeply unsettles the poor kid. Later, while the family is stuck at the traffic light, another car suddenly pulls up and aggressively slams into them from behind. Billy's father approaches the driver to talk, but then all of a sudden the killer then exits his vehicle and immediately fires his gun toward the other car. Right when an adult, Billy wakes up from his nightmare, and it turns out many years have passed since the incident. Billy becomes very distressed, so an inner voice in his head urges him to go back to bed. And we learn that the date today is December 20th. The next morning, Billy cleans up the blood on his neck right when we see a dead man in the bathroom who turns out to have been killed by Billy. Billy then takes some blood from the dead body, after which he opens an old book and places the blood under number 20. Following this, Billy packs his blood stained Santa Claus costume, which he dumps in the garbage outside the motel. Shockingly, he notices a man and a cop nearby searching for the same person who was killed by Billy. This leaves him panicked, but Billy manages to slip away from the site unnoticed. Later, he boards a bus during which he once again recalls the tragic night from years ago. We see how the killer shot Billy's mom, and we notice his Santa Claus costume. In a shocking twist, the killer turned out to be the same janitor Billy had seen at the hospice before. Turns out his mom pretended to be dead and she stabbed the old man in the throat, after which he fired another shot at her. In the present, Billy wakes up from his nightmare and his inner voice tells him he wants some coffee. Billy thus arrives at a diner where he asks the waitress the name of his town, to which she responds Hackett. Billy's attention is then drawn to a beautiful woman, and when he asks the waitress his name, she reveals that it's Pamela. However, she warns Billy to stay away from her, claiming that she is not what she seems. Despite this, Billy doesn't listen to her and begins following Pamela, which leads him to a gift store. His inner voice warns him not to think about going in, but Billy enters the store anyway. Pamela then asks if he is looking for something, and she recognizes him as the same man who was staring at her in the diner earlier. But Billy says he just came to look for a gift for his dad. Feeling awkward, he apologizes and walks away, during which Pamela receives a call from someone named Max, which she ignores. Outside the store, Billy notices a poster saying they're hiring an employee, and alongside it is a missing poster of a child. He then meets the store owner, Mr. Sims, who conducts a brief interview and decides to hire him without much hesitation. It turns out Mrs. Sims is Pamela's father, but he warns Billy that he is very protective of his daughter before breaking into laughter. After landing the job, Billy meets a woman who is an acquaintance of Mr. Sims, and she gives him a room to rent. Once inside, he begins unpacking his belongings, which include a Santa Claus costume and a menacing axe, while his inner voice reminds him not to forget who he truly is and what he does. On December 21st, Billy starts working at the store and helps Pamela put up Christmas decorations, during which they formally introduce themselves. However, things take a tense turn when Pamela receives another call from Max, causing an ornament to slip from her hand and shatter. She begins cursing loudly at herself, so Billy urges her to calm down and says he will grab a broom. His inner voice warns him that he's getting one of those feelings and tells Billy to stay alert. Later, Billy returns to see Pamela talking with an old man named George, who puts his hand on her inappropriately. This makes Billy furious, and his inner voice tells him that they are going to kill this man tonight, and Billy begins seeing visions. That night, we see Billy putting on the Santa Claus costume and preparing for his next mission. Later, George is alone in his house, relaxing on the couch, when Billy silently approaches him with his axe. While the old man is distracted by his reading, Billy suddenly calls him naughty before attacking his head with the axe. Billy collects his blood and places it in his book under number 21 as the inner voice announces that only 3 days remain. On December 22nd, Pamela tells Billy that she is taking her nephew to hockey practice and asks if he wants to come, to which he eagerly agrees. Later at the practice, Pamela and Billy grow closer and open up about each other's lives. Here, Billy's attention is suddenly drawn to a middle aged woman angrily yelling at her son, and his inner voice tells him that their next target will be her. Pamela notices Billy constantly staring at the woman, so she tells him her name is Delphine and even introduces the two of them. Just then, Pamela's attention is drawn to the hockey field where her nephew is being bullied by some other kids. This makes her furious, so she rushes there and grabs a hockey stick before hitting one of the bullies. She continues striking the boy aggressively and even knocks down his friend. She then comforts her nephew just as the coach arrives and scolds Pamela for her actions. Unfazed, she accuses him of negligence and challenges him to a fight, so Billy has to intervene. As a result of her actions, they all end up at the police station where the nephew tells Billy about a man whom they call Snatcher, who has been abducting children. Mr. Sims adds that many kids have gone missing in nearby towns, but so far there are no cases from Hacken. As for Pamela, she is currently in a cell when an officer approaches her, who shockingly turns out to be Max, the same cop whom we saw earlier at the motel. He is the one constantly bothering Pamela and demands to know why she hasn't been returning his calls. And so she reminds him how he punched her in the face and declares their relationship over. The creepy man then inappropriately touches her and says that he misses her before finally letting her go. Upon exiting the cell, Pamela rejoins her family, while Billy's inner voice warns him that he's getting one of those feelings. Later, at the store, Pamela thanks Billy for everything, after which he asks to borrow her car, so she gives him the keys. Following this, Billy wears a Santa Claus costume again and heads out, while his inner voice guides him toward his destination. Sometime later, he arrives at a large Christmas party where he is stunned to see that everyone is dressed in Santa Claus costumes. His attention is then drawn to swastika tip symbols scattered throughout, and shockingly, the host turns out to be none other than Delphine, who is the leader of a white supremacist group. She declares that this night is about showing their true selves and even states that Christmas belongs only to white people, which fills Billy with intense anger. With this, Billy returns to his car to grab his axe and decides he will kill every Nazi at the party. He begins by taking out the guard. Up next, he locks the door of the party so no one can escape. He then begins striking and killing people indiscriminately, unleashing chaos throughout the crowd. Billy even takes a few hits as he is struck in the head and stabbed in the shoulder, but it isn't enough to stop him. Seeing this, Delphine pulls out a rifle to shoot Billy, but she fires wildly and ends up killing her own people in the process. After all of them die, a horrified Delphine flees, but Billy's inner voice says he knows exactly where the woman is going. Next, Delphine speeds away in a vehicle and flees towards the forest, unaware that Billy is already waiting for her. He ambushes her and decapitates her with his axe, finally ending her life. Afterward, he collects Delphine's blood and puts it in his book under number 22, then sets the entire party on fire before leaving. Upon returning to his room, Billy removes a bullet from his leg, while his inner voice scolds him for being reckless, reminding him that he almost died tonight. On December 23rd, Billy arrives at work where a worried Pamela asks him to be Santa since George, who plays Santa every year, didn't show up. Billy's inner voice urges him to refuse, warning that if he puts on the suit, he might lose control. But when Pamela continues to insist, he finally agrees and wears the outfit. Later, he greets a little girl at the store, during which he struggles with dark thoughts and even pulls out a knife. But Billy's inner voice reminds him that he isn't the kind of person to harm a child and guides him back to reality. Billy also listens to the voice and is finally able to calmly interact with several other children. That night, Billy hesitates to go out and kill, so his inner voice warns him that if he doesn't act, an innocent person might die instead. The voice urges him to stay in control, reminding him that it's not the time to break his 10-year killing streak. Just then, Billy hears a noise nearby, but it turns out to be Pamela, who suddenly kisses him. An excited Billy also kisses her back, and the two end up making love that night. The scene then cuts to Christmas Eve when George's daughter arrives at his house, only to be horrified to find her father dead. Elsewhere, Billy is heading to the store where he notices several cops questioning people and a new poster of another missing child. Later, Pamela tells Billy that George was found murdered in his house, but the most shocking discovery is that they also found his wife's body hidden in the crawl space, and it turns out she was killed by George. Pamela finds this deeply disturbing as she used to talk to George all the time and thought he seemed sweet. That night, Billy's inner voice scolds him for missing a day and says that because of it, another child went missing. But Billy refers to his inner voice as Charlie and insists that the two events are unrelated. He also admits that he is tired of all the bloodshed and has come to enjoy his new life, especially when interacting with the children and spending time with Pamela. Elsewhere, Mr. Sims closes his store late at night, and while heading home, he notices a noise coming from a nearby parked car. When he rushes to check, he is horrified to see a kidnapped child with his hands tied. Mr. Sims tries to call the cops, but then, before he can, we see that the killer is wearing a Santa Claus mask. The scene then cuts to Christmas Day when the whole town is gathered at the gift shop to pay their respects to the deceased. A devastated Pamela can't stop crying, so Billy does his best to comfort her, while Max watches them with jealousy. Later, while Billy is in bed with Pamela, she says she wishes Santa were real so she can make a Christmas wish. We then learn that Billy had watched the CCTV footage earlier in which he saw the brutal death of Mr. Sims. Meanwhile, Pamela wishes that he could wish for only one thing from Santa, which is to cut her father's killer slowly into pieces. Upon hearing this, Billy tells her she can make her wish come true, and Pamela asks how. Through a flashback, we learn that Billy and his inner voice Charlie had finally managed to track down the Snatcher and are now planning to kill him. Later, Billy decides to tell Pamela the truth and says that when he was 8 years old, he witnessed his parents being murdered by someone dressed as Santa Claus. The killer was a janitor from his grandpa's hospice, and his name was Charlie. While Charlie was in his last moments, Billy was strangely drawn to him, so he approached the man and held his hand, after which an electrical surge seemed to pass between them. In the present, we see Billy driving somewhere with Pamela while wearing a Santa Claus costume, and he reveals that Charlie has been with him ever since that day. He explains how Charlie instructed him to kill every year during the 24 days of December, though Billy didn't act on it until he was 17. When Charlie deemed him ready, the first person he killed was his last foster mother, who used to drug foster children, so they would fall asleep and lock them inside the house all day. If anyone broke something in the house, she would brutally beat them, and three children died under her care, but their deaths were dismissed as accidents. Billy then says that Charlie wasn't just an imaginary friend or a split personality, he could actually sense evil. In a shocking twist, it is revealed that Billy's parents had murdered his grandfather by poisoning him so they could claim the inheritance, which is why Charlie killed them. He further explains that Charlie had always been with him, teaching him how to get jobs, find places to live, and survive, acting like a father to him. Billy states that Charlie even showed him visions before the killings to justify why these people deserved to die. Whenever Billy wears the Santa Claus costume, it is like flipping a switch and he becomes something else entirely. Upon hearing this, Pamela asks why he hasn't killed her, and Billy explains that it's because she is a good person. We then see someone following them in another car, and it turns out to be none other than Max. Shortly after, Pamela and Billy stop in front of a Christmas tree farm, which Charlie claims will lead them to the supposed snatcher. Billy is stunned when he recalls that the man he killed at the motel a few days ago also used to work at this place. Next, the two make their way inside a small cabin where they begin observing around with headlights. Pamela soon finds empty syringes and missing child posters, which leaves her horrified. She then feels something beneath her feet and discovers a door leading to the cellar. The two open the cellar door and finds the inside filled with plastic balls, but shockingly Pamela notices a child's hand. She immediately rushes to help and discovers several more children trapped inside. Pamela begins rescuing the kids one by one, but suddenly the snatcher appears behind her and attacks. A panicked Billy jumps into the ball pit, but both Pamela and the snatcher disappear and hide beneath the pit. And so Charlie guides Billy to work straight and instructs him exactly where to strike. Billy follows the instructions and manages to stab the snatcher. But the snatcher retaliates and brutally stabs Billy while Pamela rushes upstairs and tries to call for help. But the phone isn't working. Moments later, Billy finally emerges from the cellar after killing the snatcher, though he himself is bleeding heavily. He says he will get the car ready so they can leave with the children and hurries outside. Unfortunately, before Billy can even reach the car, Max suddenly shows up and shoots him. Upon hearing the gunshot, Pamela rushes outside and is devastated to see Billy on the verge of death, and she angrily yells at Max. During this time, Charlie says goodbye to Billy, telling him he's going to miss him and asking him to take care of Pamela, which makes both men deeply emotional. Upon Charlie's instructions, Billy grabs Pamela's hand and an electrical current passes between them, causing Pamela to lose consciousness. Shortly after, Pamela wakes up to find a worried Max in front of her, and he's assuring her that he is there for her. But she soon experiences the visions of his past, shockingly revealing how Max had helped the child abductors in their criminal operation in exchange for some money. This enrages Pamela so much that she bites off his nose before taking Billy's axe and killing him. In the aftermath, Pamela hears Billy's voice, but shockingly, he isn't alive. But the voice is actually coming from her head. Billy then asks her if she's ready for this, and Pamela begins to smile as the movie comes to an end. And just like that, Billy is gone. But evil never really dies, it just finds a new host. Now, the question is, was Charlie ever real, or was the darkness inside Billy all along? And if Pamela is the next chosen one, who's next on the list? If you enjoyed this twisted Christmas horror story, make sure to hit the like button because it really helps the channel grow. Subscribe to CineSnap for more insane movie recaps like this, where nothing is ever as simple as it seems.